my question for people who think that we live in a democracy, that we don't live in a permanent state, how do we vote Anthony Blinken out of power? We got Neera Tanden, who is the White House domestic policy advisor. Now, my guess was that we didn't vote for Neera Tanden when Hillary lost, because Neera Tanden, correct me if I'm wrong, was like a campaign advisor, somewhere high ranked among in Hillary Clinton. I don't know her exact title. So when the American people voted against Hillary Clinton, we by proxy voted against Neera Tanden. But you guys see how Neera Tanden is still in government? There are powerful people like Lloyd Austin and a lot of these people that just embedded in our system that we cannot get rid of through the ballot box. And that is the concept that I always thought of as being the permanent state. And that's why I'm glad that very smart people like you guys can explain it in a very academic way, that so people understand it, not just some term that Trump and MAGA deeply unseriously are using in a way to cover for them. So my final question, since did be the last question tonight, since the topic was analyzing RFK's claim regarding JFK, what would you guys say? Because you mentioned how you knew people that literally seen JFK get shot. What would you guys say to the people that believe Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone and you guys are just crazy conspiracy theorists? What would your just a very general response to that before we wrap up tonight?
Let me just say something really quickly, Nick. One of the major themes of Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s campaign is that the corporate America has captured the regulatory agencies that are meant to protect us, that are meant to protect the American citizens, the FDA, the EPA, the CDC, all the agencies that are meant to protect our health and welfare in Washington have been captured by the corporations, by the industries that they're supposed to regulate. Bobby Kennedy has said that, I think, very eloquently. And as an environmental lawyer, he's fought and sued many of these agencies in court. So that's why we have poisoned water, why we have poisoned air. These industries run the agencies. Now, as for Lee Harvey Oswald, there's no way that he fired the gun that killed President Kennedy. He was probably not even in the 6th-floor nest at the time. Evidence, eyewitnesses who worked in that building with him have him walking downstairs. G. Robert Blakey, who Aaron Good referred to earlier, was the chief counsel of the House Assassinations Committee in the 1970s, that, by the way, found a conspiracy existed to kill President Kennedy. G. Robert Blakey thought that he was supposed to be killed by people in on the conspiracy as he came out of the building, the Texas Book Depository, Oswald. They had a problem when he was free, when he had to be silenced. He knew too much. He knew some of the plot, not everything, of course, because he was a low-level intelligence agency. That's why he got inserted in the Soviet Union, and he came back unmolested with a Soviet wife. And he was even given a loan by the State Department to come back here after renouncing his citizenship. Said that he would act as a spy for the Soviet Union. It's absurd that he came back to the Cold War, the height of the Cold War, and was not taken into custody immediately by the FBI and thrown in prison. So Lee Harvey Oswald was meant to be silenced. When he wasn't killed coming out of the Texas Book Depository that day, he was killed that weekend by Jack Ruby on national television. Jack Ruby was a gopher for the mafia. The CIA.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That's who Jack Ruby was. And Bobby Kennedy figured out right away. Frank Mankiewicz, who was Bobby Kennedy Sr.'s press secretary, told me from my book Brothers that when we saw who Jack Ruby was talking to on the phone records before he killed Oswald, it read like the Senate Rackets Committee, the witnesses hearing. They're all mobsters. So he was totally mobbed up. He was a trigger man for the mafia. The mafia worked, as we know, for the CIA. They tried to kill Castro and other leaders. So the CIA would recruit mobsters again and again to do their dirty work. They recruited Jack Ruby to do their dirty work in Dallas.
Yeah, I believe it. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, the official story of the Warren Commission report is I mean, something that was put together because LBJ told people, "Hey, look at all this. This I've got crazy information that says maybe the Soviets are behind this. We better cover this up, or there's going to be a nuclear war, and millions of people are going to die." That's what he told the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who didn't want to do it. He felt like it was some sort of shady thing. He was like, "I don't really want to do this." He was told, "If you don't do this, probably millions of people are going to die." So he did it. He did the same thing to Senator Russell. But Russell later was a dissenter. You know, the report was marketed as a unanimous decision, but actually three of the people didn't agree with it. And Russell himself had his dissent actually surreptitiously removed from the report so that it wouldn't be in there, so nobody would even know that he had dissented. So they didn't believe it themselves. J. Edgar Hoover didn't believe the single bullet theory. LBJ came to suspect the CIA was behind the assassination, even though it was his own commission. So that shows you the power of these guys, that even though the president, LBJ, thought CIA had killed his predecessor, he wasn't going to do anything about it. So that's the power of these guys. Now also consider the fact that the story is there's one wacky lone nut, Lee Oswald, and he goes up there and pew pew pew, fires 3 shots, misses with 1, causes
Amazing
7
shots.
wounds.
Miraculous shots.
Yeah, 7 wounds with the other one.
Greatest shooter ever, apparently, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, the guy who knew him, his best friend, a Russian who knew him in the Soviet Union, said he was a terrible shot. When they went out watermelon on the weekend, they had to shoot the rabbits for him because he was such a bad marksman.
Yeah.
Come on, baby. He probably got lucky this time.
So he's a bad shooter, and he does this impossible thing. The magic bullet itself, 7 wounds with 1 bullet, and the bullet's in perfect condition. Just impossible, even before you look at the angles, which are also impossible. But then, like, think about this. The story is one lone nut kills another lone nut, and that's it. Okay, one lone nut kills the president, and then another lone nut kills the first lone nut. It's a story of 2 lone nuts. Okay. But the kicker is that both of them were the 2 lone nuts themselves were conspiracy theorists, because Oswald was asked, "Did you shoot the president?" He said, "No, I'm just a patsy," meaning I'm just a guy who was set up by other people. Okay, he's pointing. Yeah, he said, "I'm just a patsy."
I did not know
so,
he said that. That's crazy.
So he points to a conspiracy, and so the other guy who kills the supposedly lone nut, Jack Ruby, also said I was made to do this. It was a conspiracy, and they're trying to kill me in jail, and I'm in danger. But I was forced to do this. Crazy. And then he dies of cancer or a pulmonary embolism, and he says they've been poisoning him, and then he dies. So even the 2 lone nuts themselves were actually the first conspiracy theorist was probably the JFK case was probably Lee Harvey Oswald when he says I'm a patsy. Like, he's actually the first conspiracy theorist.
That's crazy, because I wouldn't be able to explain this as eloquently as you guys are. But I remember being a teenager, hearing about the story of JFK being killed by Lee Harvey Oswald, and I'm like, okay. And then he was killed after that. After that, I was like, okay, what? That makes no sense. And once again, I can explain it the way you guys did, but I knew from day one. You can say I'm more conspiracy minded, but from day one, I'm like, dude, I do not believe what the fuck they say about JFK. There's no way you can convince me that Lee Harvey Oswald was just murdered. And the way you correct me if I'm wrong, but the way they explain it, he was just walked up on and they just shoot him. And despite the amount of security detail they would have on this guy, that they definitely would want to ask some questions, right? So why would they be so loose with his security? And once again, I don't know what you guys know, but back then I just made that simple deduction. Like, there's no way they will allow this guy to get killed unless they want him to be killed. So I appreciate you guys coming on and explaining why I had those suspicions in a very eloquent way.